Drop 2 voicings are really useful for a lot of different things in jazz. They are essential for most kinds of jazz comping that you're going to come across, and they're of course also the biggest part of what you'll find in a Wes Montgomery or a George Benson chord solo. In this video I'm going to show you how you can take a basic set of drop 2 chords for the song Satin Doll, and then you can add a few levels on top of that by just adding some top note melodies, some interesting rhythms, and also some melodic concepts, because I think it's important that we realize that when we're playing chords and when we're comping, then you need to use melodic concepts like motivic development and call response, because that's what really makes the difference between playing the chords and actually making a complete musical statement. My name is Jens Larsen, learn jazz, make music. I'm going to take the first 8 bars of Satin Doll, and then I'm going to take that through 5 levels, starting with just sort of the very basic set of chords, and then adding more and more interesting and more complicated melodies, chromatic chords, passing notes, rhythms, and also connecting it to a few other types of chord voicings. This is the first example. It's just one drop 2 voicing for each chord, keeping it kind of simple. But when you only have a few chords, then you of course have more room to work on the rhythm. So in these examples, I'm working a lot more with finding some interesting rhythms and also just going over some of the basic standard rhythms that you want to have in your comping. You should also notice that you can really work with motivic development in terms of rhythm when you're working with a progression like Satin Doll, because you have D-7, G7, and then you get that repeated in the next bar, and that means that you can kind of make a statement in the first bar and then make a development of that in the second bar. Here I'm adding a fairly simple top note melody, and I don't have that many notes that I can choose from, but that doesn't really matter too much, because anyway when you're comping you want to keep the melody subtle and simple. You can't skip around too much, and you want to think more in terms of making rhythmical riffs that are clear in the chords. So here I can, for the D-7, I have an A and a G as a top note melody, and the same goes for the G7. And then you can of course move that around for the E minor A7. Then for the A minor D7, I have 3 notes. I have the A, the B, and also the C. And then I can use that as well. But really the focus here is on playing small, simple melodies, thinking in terms of riffs, using a lot of repeated notes. That's what's gonna work. But for the next step, then we start adding in some more voicings, and we're gonna open up these possibilities quite a lot. It's very important that you don't get tied down with systems. It doesn't really matter whether you're working with soloing or comping. In this case, we're of course working with the drop 2 voicings, but you kind of want to connect everything across different types of voicings and mix everything together, because in the end, it's about making music with it. It's not about having the perfect system. And that's what I'm doing in this example. So if we start with this D-7 voicing, so I have that voicing and I can of course change the top note melody. But I can actually also, because in this voicing I have the sort of the basic part of the voicing, the 3rd and the 7th on the middle strings, I can also just leave out the highest string. And then I have a 3-note voicing, but that works as well. And I can change the top note now again, so I have these melody notes. And of course I can also just choose to just play these two notes. So there are a lot of different voicings that are gonna work well together with this one, and that I can also use when I'm playing, and that's what I'm doing in this example. As I said in the beginning of the video, you want to play complete musical statements, and a big part of what ties together the different chords that you're playing as a musical statement is the top note melody. And since we're playing jazz, we want to play jazz melodies as top note melodies, and they tend to just include some chromaticism. But most of the time you can actually get away with just playing chromatic melodies as well when you're comping, and that's what I'm doing in this example. So if we take the example of this D minor 7 voicing, then the melody that I have, I want to go from A to G, but I'm adding the chromatic passing note in between, so the A flat. And I'm just still playing the chords, so it's just... And this works because the melody makes sense, and this chord is a D minor 7, it makes sense, it works. And this one is a D minor 7 with 11, and that works as well. So we can just add these chromatic leading notes in between. I do that also on the G7. And here it works as well, same reason. The chord stays the same and the melody makes sense, therefore it works. But you can still choose to also harmonize these chromatic notes, and that's what we're gonna do in the next section. In this example, I have the chromatic top note melodies that I also used in the previous example, but now I've harmonized the chromatic notes in a different way. So I have this D minor and I'm going down to the G, but on the G I have a G7. So now I want to harmonize the A flat, and the way I do that is that I actually just take the voicing I'm using on G7 and then putting that under the A flat, and then everything just slides into place like this. You can also do this with some counter movement, and that's what I'm doing on the A minor 7 D7, and here I'm moving from this A minor 7 with a 9, and then I want to go down to this D7, and in between I'm adding this B flat. So I need to harmonize this, and I'm actually doing that with a D flat 7, because if I do it like that, then I have this chord, and that's then resolving like this, where the chord is moving up and the melody is moving down, which is a very smooth way of doing that. It's very important that you learn to connect different types of chord voicings. You saw it in the example that I have in this video, and if you start checking out transcriptions from, for instance, Joe Pass, you'll see that he does this all the time. If you want to check out a video where I'm going over this way of thinking, then check out this video where I'm taking Autumn Leaves and then working on combining different types of voicings and show you all the things you can do with that.